Hi, everyone, and welcome to this podcast. My name is Lisa Oswald, and I am the Awake Energy Channel for the workspace of Pleiadian Great Light. I am so very happy and excited to announce our newest book release, Being Awake Now. Enlightenment is not what you think it is. These channeled messages from Book 6 of the Transmissions of Pleiadian Great Light Channel Book Series offer a refreshing new look at the exploration of human psychology and consciousness from the perspective of noticing the three kinds of choices. This book is dear to my heart, and I am very happy to be able to read for everyone the following chapter from Book 6. So let's begin now. Someone in the group asks a question to Pleiadian Great Light Channel. Question: there are many spiritual scriptures, like the Vedas, that people recognize as the ultimate truth. They express knowledge of attaining higher states of consciousness and enlightenment. Why is that? How does that happen? You pretty much just said it. Who are they expressed by? Somebody, somewhere, said something that seemed to describe something that was a common ground of knowledge, wisdom, or appreciation of an experience that existed long ago in somebody's mind. That experience was noticed and became duplicated because of the sensory system it relied on to express itself that way. We'll call it the sensory system of universality. That is a description based on knowing the full sensory grasp of itself. However, it is empty as it is described because it is still using the full range of sensory orientation and has lost its uniqueness. How great a story is that? Everybody likes the story, but the best part of the story is lost. The story of uniqueness is the side of the story that needs to be brought home. Then the end of the story and the final chapter can be written. Then we can move on with a bigger story about ourselves. Question: how could it have been lost? That story was lost because the sensory equipment went out too far into the vastness and became separated from uniqueness. As that experience was explained, some delight was added to it because the mind is mentally relaxed enough to enjoy nothing in particular. In that experience of relaxation, some delightfulness was built in, some worshiping was brought in, and some lack of appreciation began innocently. As that pendulum swings, it's just natural that we begin to find who we are that wrote that story. So who wrote that story? Who is listening to it? You are, so bring it back home again. Bring the story you like all the way back then. We have to nudge the senses quite a lot to bring it back from that kind of vastness. We have to nudge it with all we have left to nudge because that story has left out individuation. That story lost me, and when that happened, energy was no longer noticed as a movement of your own self. It's not noticed anywhere particularly because it's sensory-oriented, and the senses are largely asleep at that point. They're resting. The opposite viewpoint is awake and coming home again. Knowing yourself is activated again. Activation occurs as the light of your soul steps forward in its full glory of the full spectrum of information for yourself, by yourself, and automatically energy begins to fold and unfold. To worship the state of lack of noticing is not a big deal. It can happen very easily. We can all be in that state if we choose to some degree. So how much do we want to give away of ourselves, of who that we came to be known as? How much of that do you give up every day in not noticing? We're energy beacons. In your noticing is where you find yourself moving. That's where the flow of life is. This isn't life lost out here. This is living life in here, awake. Noticing the connection with noticing purposeful movement can only be recognized by uniqueness. How could it be known by itself in any other way? It can't know itself that way. That's why it was never part of the story. It's impossible. The senses have been left way out there and are no longer recognized. They no longer recognize uniqueness, and that's why it is not part of that story. So look around and notice. Who can even notice that story? There must be some nudging going on. There must be some nudging going on in the direction of your own soul light coming back into that awakening of itself. Itself knows itself by its own individuation. There are no tools needed to be awake. Awake is just that bubble of noticing the motion of your own awakeness and your own energy system that's already doing what it's supposed to be doing. It is already presenting itself as awake. What we are asking of ourselves is just a simple noticing of who that could be. There must be somebody here to notice that kind of movement of ourselves. Claim yourself as knowable. Don't say, I can't know who I am anymore. You are all meant to know exactly who you came to be known as, and that's the fun of it. Being who you are, that you came here to be known as, is your own proclamation and is exactly why you came. It is just a simple expression of all that already exists. Enlightenment has been a good trip so far for most people. It offers a glimpse at a greater sense of you, but mostly from a philosophical point of view. Enlightenment can be and has been argued by many. Proponents have taught their way for others to follow them into the opening of the abyss, the vastness, for the senses to fall into. That's okay. We understand and appreciate them for their hard work and understanding it as a great story. That is unique also. However, in terms of energy, ours is just a new look at an old story that has been looked at very hard for many years, many centuries, and many long stretches of time in all directions. To us, this is just the perspective from full awakefulness to the appreciation of how far the senses can travel and yet remain united with something greater. This is a new and delicate shift in experience with a perspective that's been gathered over a very long time and coming into play now. This moment is just unfolding right now, and by that we mean this is the time for this movement of energy to be called back home in a way that may seem new but isn't. It's actually what's always been going on, but is not remembered in this kind of expression. It's not a new storyline. Something is just slightly shifting now, so more of humankind and life forms are able to remember at this time themselves and their uniqueness. That's all that is being added right now. However, this is more than a story. This is more than the creation of a philosophy. People may be struggling to follow this simply because of the loss of memory of the uniqueness that is here within each being. That unique spark is here within each being everywhere. We're talking now to sentient beings about that spark, and that is what is being uncovered again through remembering. Some of that happens now, and some of it happens as it unfolds as a process of awakening in the stirring of one's own conscious remembering of this uniqueness of yourselves. So the mind is not part of this memory. The mind cannot remember what it doesn't know. The mind has not been part of and is not able to be part of this memory. Everyone here is becoming tuned in to something they are not sure of, and because of that very delicate tuning in process, one continues to look for some reassurance from somewhere about this experience, but it is not an experience. It is just a memory coming into focus and coming into play and coming into this moment. It's a beautiful opening and nothing is being left out. Entire energy systems are being rerouted away from the usual mind and sensory game. They are being vastly more appreciated with awareness for the first time in a long time for their own movement, motion, and unfolding ability. That's a good thing. Because this is a forgotten memory, it seems impossible to talk about it in terms of offering a format for this to follow or fit in. It's difficult because we live in a society in which everything is formatted into a system of self-discovery, some kind of informative gathering from somewhere, from some source outside of that physical being, from somewhere else, from someone else, or something else. It's not going to be possible to point to anything like that from now on because, as your own unique energy is being stirred, the only information that is waking up is on the level of the soul and the purpose for that soul's awakening, which is to discover its own self in motion. That is our message. It may not be that different from everyone else's. It's just a tiny bit of a shift to something that can't be directly experienced because it is the awakened memory of itself we are leading to here. How to talk about that is what's been forgotten a lot in many of the systems of philosophy that exist and have existed here on this earth forever. How to talk about that has been forgotten. So other systems replaced that experience that once was very much alive on this earth. It once was very much alive. It's a good question because it can relate to the experience of the pendulum swinging in terms of life force. That pendulum swinging and appreciating that full motion allows for memories to be rekindled. Some of these memories can come from behind, seemingly come from ahead, and some from right now in this opening. We open a space when we talk about remembering and the memory of something that was more alive. Opening a space just means a bigger opening than you thought was attached to your own memory of who you are, of yourself. A big opening means a greater expanse for information to be experienced and awakened. It's easier to find this memory in this opening. It's more likely to bump into this memory in a bigger opening. A bigger opening just means not so much expansiveness of our own selves, but the ability to locate and find and recognize more than we were aware of. Energy is moving in a big way, always in these openings that are here in space. In an opening, the energy is moving in all directions very quickly, outwardly. Everything is amplified right now. More fluidity is possible, and greater openings of who you are able to be experienced this way. More memories can be rekindled of who you are. Who you are means your own unique spark, your own energy signature and your own coming home vibration to yourself, with yourself, and by yourself. No one is having the same experience as another. That's why there is no such thing as enlightenment. Enlightenment is a big group story. Coming home is a uniquely individual and personal moment to arrive at under the full sail and direction of what we call soul light. If you prefer not to use the words soul and soul light, that's fine. You can just think of that as some force that is guiding the deepest, honest, and genuine sense of who you are and even who you think you are. That's fine too. Enlightenment is not present. Enlightenment is a different kind of story, an experience the mind is very much in love with. The mind is excited by the story of enlightenment because it puts itself as the main character and has quite a bit to say about the entire outcome. We know that can't be the way it is. It can't be. It only seems that way because the story has been told very well for a long time. In truth, there is much more happening than you realize. We are all living exactly what we are, and what and who we are is this infinite scale of life force and energy, very much attuned to each other as a vibration, as a pattern moving across itself. We can switch our thinking a little bit to include this knowledge, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt anything or even interrupt the story others may be telling. We can be confident in the way it really is. Honestly, it's just a very simple experience and it's not confusing. It contains no doubts or wondering and has an immense view of purpose, joy, and appreciation. This is just the way it really is, with that slight shift of the senses being gathered by the soul and brought back home like a mother loving her child in that loving embrace as she brings that child back close to herself. Our own soul light gathers up the senses and everything, every bit of that information, and brings it back very lovingly with great appreciation of all the places and waves it has known and does know. It has that awake memory of itself that is calling itself into this vast opening of itself for that unobstructed view of itself. Enlightenment loses quite a bit of the ability to appreciate the coming home of the senses into the unique vibration that is being held in place with a form. Being held in place by the conscious awareness of its own purpose for being is what holds that form in place. In enlightenment, something is missing in terms of the ability to know and be that purpose, that very intimate purpose of what is giving rise on all levels of experience and movement of one's own energy. That only happens when full awake is knowing itself in the sense of individuality, moving and crossing all barriers, including the senses, the wisdom mind, and awake, fully able to appreciate a connection with the individual form as well as anything and everything else. Along with that comes awareness and awakefulness of that movement of itself as well. But even that movement has something else. That movement comes with the realization that it can be aware of even more of itself. And that's the greater appreciation for the infinity of that movement on a unique scale. It's almost unfathomable. There's no stopping. There's no end in sight. There's no finished product. It's not an assembly line. There's always another point of itself finding more of itself. That's what links all energy. That's what links it on the level of wisdom and on the level of cohesiveness. This is beyond what the senses would call universal love. If you are thinking along those lines, then this is shifting way beyond that. This is shifting into the experience of awake, a unique individual sense of self, moving always in the direction of itself with no end in sight. Because it is open to itself, it has an unobstructed view, and that's why it is called an opening. Question: can we do all of this ourselves? You already have that ability. It's only the memory that's being shifted. The view of yourself to itself, of itself, with itself, is that open space. And that unobstructed view of itself and that pure experience of moving energy is that open space. The experience of the conscious memory of who you are is not abstract. The open space created by the rekindled memory of who we are is in itself that opening. It happens all at once. It's not a process here. It's not one stage leading to the next. It's just that magnificent memory rekindling the movement and the knowledge of itself where it is, and some greater appreciation for the energy signature that is unique and moving and opening itself to itself for that view. A lot is happening at once. A lot of overlapping things are happening at once. Lots of appreciation is possible for this entire opening and experience of uniqueness. Pleiadian Great Light has come here, maybe one last time, to rekindle the forgotten memory and experience of one's unique energy signature that carries and transmits oneness and, at the same time, has a sense of individuality about it. These channeled transmissions are not about the future or the past, or how to ascend or transcend, because you are already here now, in your body, alive and awake. All that is needed is a little nudging to remember who you truly are, and that is the way it is. Thank you so much for listening. Please visit Pleiadianchannel.com for more information about Project Lightbody's book series, our audiobooks, and a link to a wonderful healing YouTube video of a guided global transmission of awake energy. We thank you for your support. Our books are being read around the world, and I am grateful for your kind reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, which can help more people to discover this soul, deep energy, and light work. Everyone take care, and thank you again.